Okay, let's see. Here we go. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, baby. Okay, looks like it. Looks like we're okay. All right, so now I need to go over here, go here. Excuse me, we are live on Facebook. Let me go on to the page and get this part worked out. Susan Marie's in the house, third time's a charm. The third time's more charming, let's put it that way.
I like things in threes.
Yeah, isn't that true?
I do.
My grandmother told me for years that everything happens in trees.
Trees.
So I was always like, yeah, bless her heart. She's been a huge part of my journey from the other side.
Wow.
In fact, she was the first encounter I ever had with someone from the other side. And I was actually working with a medium that I had met, and I kind of knew that, you know, I was really not awake. And then I said, "What do you do? Show me what you do." And so my grandmother came in, and I was very skeptical, and she kept saying, you know, she showed me a birdhouse, she showed me this, she showed me that, and they all connected, but I wasn't like, oh yeah, oh my God, it's a line, and I was skeptical. And then she said, and I was, I guess, exhibiting a energy of skepticism, and then she said through the medium, she said, "Okay, smarty pants." And my grandmother, my whole life, would call me smarty pants, and she was the only one that called me smarty pants. So I'm like, okay, something's going on here. And then she put her hand on my heart. Oh. And that's only happened 3 times. Once with Yeshua, and once with well, actually, I think it's 7 more, but the other one was with like the Mother Goddess energy. Okay, thank you for letting me share that.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's 4 minutes past start time. We're going to jump into this. We got 38 people in the house.
Awesome.
If these shows resonate with you, please share. We would appreciate it. Just so everybody knows the drill right now, we're originating from Zoom in preparation, experimentation with what we're transitioning to. Facebook hasn't allowed us to come on every time. When that occurs, we go to YouTube. And I usually do a Facebook Live on my phone and say, hey, we're going over to YouTube. But regardless of that, regardless of whatever Facebook does, or whether we're on YouTube or Facebook, you can always watch these shows in the holding pattern that we're in on Zoom. And the Zoom link is on every post. So that's just letting you know what's happening at Soulogy. I want to thank everybody for your continued love and support and contributions. These 1111s and 777s and 1212s, and they all add up, and they allow us to keep doing what we're doing. We are walking into the unknown every single day. There's no guarantees, but this is the energy that we're all walking into, and there is a collaboration, co-creation, mutual support, not codependency, but we're talking co-creation. And when we offer whatever it is that we offer, whatever energy that we put out in an equal energy exchange, and this isn't, I'm not talking, you know, monetarily speaking, I'm talking in all ways, that's how this energy grows. And so I just want to pass that on, and thank you for letting me say that. I want to welcome back Susan Marie to SouLSpeaks 5D. Let me just say hello to Angel Divine, Andrew Rawlings, Richard Simonite, Maria Iverson from Sweden, Tom Whitebear, Michael Van Damelon, who has been putting out some amazing stuff, Donna Davin, Jean Bouquet, Day Woods, Datatone, Tile, Tai, Tracy Klein, my dear friend, Sally Love, Karina Fari, Pia, Hadzlamar Dator from Sweden, Norma Costello, Stephen Kerr, Georgiana Mann, Heather Nilsson, Sue Baxter Fitz, Joy Love, Neil Devaney, V. Luce from Laguna Beach, Frederica, old friend from when I first came off the streets, sending you the highest peace, love, comfort, and your new last name. So I'm sending you all the blessings for your union. Colette Fergino, Stephen Kerr, Wolf Club Gray, and Helen Bond from Australia. Welcome back, Susan. 58 people in the house.
Wonderful.
Thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence today. It's a pleasure sitting across from you the first two times. You have such a compelling, beautiful, angelic energy, which you relayed to us, and some of the stories that you told, and some of the people that actually put up testimonials. So what's been going on? What have you been observing? How's Susan doing?
Wow. It's the speed with which things are coming in. The clarity that's coming in now is astronomical. The dove energies brought in so much resonance of truth. And what I have noticed, and I'm wondering if others have noticed this as well, is that you're in front of another person and you instantly have an understanding of what they're vibrating in. The clarity with which where they are resonating, what their operating system is becoming known. And what I have also noticed is that in holding the light of that which I am, it's amplifying what's in them even more. And it's not necessarily that there's an actual interaction. I'm seeing physical changes in the people that are in front of me. And with the realization and understanding that I'm in dominion, I'm standing in dominion, and knowing that I am sovereign in that which I am. Also too, like the ideas, like the thoughts that come in and the instant materialization of it.
Yes.
I'm
Isn't that crazy?
I'm just like in constant awe. I've been holding these groups, Todd, and I call them a deep dive into mastery. And I held one in Stratford on Monday night. And as I was amongst, I think there was about 25 to 30 people in the house when I was doing the group. And I noticed that 12 vortexes, they were like tornadoes of energy, were spinning around me in the room. And they kept knocking me over and I was stumbling. And I became aware that somebody in the room had fibromyalgia. And so I asked who in the room has fibromyalgia, because they're bringing in healing for you. And I've asked for things to be in suddenlies. And so a girl put her hand up and I turned towards her. And as I aligned my heart chakra with hers, this burst of light shot out of my heart chakra and into hers. And I was watching her to see what the energy was doing. And she started to have a nosebleed. It was dripping down onto the floor. And then it erupted into this pouring blood into her hands. And of course, grabbing Kleenexes and handing them to her. And then other people stood up to assist her. And then I heard in my spirit, move on, there's more to do. And so I just continued to work, knowing that others were looking after her. Well, the next day when I was asking the guides, what was that? Like, what does a nosebleed have to do with fibromyalgia? Because I do things not knowing. I'm just the vessel that this is flowing through. And then I ask for clarity and understanding later when I'm in the flow of doing different things. And what they said to me was that it wasn't fibromyalgia, although that's how she identified it, that she actually had a tumor on her pituitary gland. And I said, okay, how does that relate to the nose? And they said, look it up on Google. So
Is that what they told you?
Oh yeah, they always
Google
send me
it.
the Google it, right? So I looked up on Google and found out that the pituitary gland is right connected to the nose vessels, the blood vessels. And so I said, okay, so you're showing me that the blood vessels of the nose are involved in the pituitary. What actually did you do? They said, we performed a surgery on her.
Wow, instantaneously.
Instantaneous. And I said, that was really cool. And they said, well, you have asked for suddenlies. And so I have an expectant heart because
I'm sorry, what did you say? You have astral what?
Suddenlies.
Okay.
Because, it's the whole easy peasy thing. We have labored for so long. And what they're telling me is that we must stand on the universal laws of truth now. There is a universal law which states that where the light is, sickness cannot be.
Yes.
And so I'm holding the vibration of that resonant truth, that law, in the vibrational field that I hold. So when I'm standing in the midst of another, what they say to me is that my vibrational field is lifting them into the place that they cannot attain on their own in that moment, because they're in density through their thoughts, actions, and beliefs. So I can hold them in the resonant field. And because we are one, we're not separated by the flesh. I bypass the physicality and go spirit to spirit and command the spirit to align with the truth of all that is.
Mm.
Then the spirit in turn responds to take dominion over the body. And it's the law that actually breaks the curse of sickness and death. It's the spirit that gives the body life.
Yeah. Now, do you think this is a fascinating account? Fascinating account. I know it's normal.
It's my normal.
Although everything's expanding everybody's experience, but I know it's normal. I know your track record. I know where you come from,
Yeah.
and there's many others out there.
Yes.
And I just want to make one point. One point is that thank you for sharing this, because it's very important. Because energetically and otherwise, we all know that this very type of thing is what was suppressed and put down, and you know, and the I guess the superficial aspect of so many divine feminines being you know, physically removed from the planet. So that takes a lot of bravery, and I think that, you know, on the no, I really mean that, because
my playground.
yeah, well, there's been such an energy of suppression that's so embedded in y'all that you've been reluctant to come up. So I really just want to say thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, now you had a group of people,
Yeah,
and then you had these 12 vortexes spinning, or whatever they were. Do you think that the numbers of the people, the intentions of the people, in other words, do you think those 12 vortexes were representative of everyone that was there, or most of the people that were there, or was it just a team that came in that you're just a conduit for?
it's what I understand, it's a combination of both. So I am a vessel. They tell me that I hold the 7 rays of light. So I have a pillar of light that comes over me that's the color of magenta, which is the complete color of all 7 rays, including the white light of the divine. And that came upon me. Originally, it was just a white beam of light that came down over me. And when I went to Mount Shasta to bless the waters, where the feminine and masculine waters came into the earth, that pillar of light changed to magenta. And since then, I've been moving in these 7 rays of light in the work that I do. This was the first time that I've seen these 12 pillars, vortexes come in.
Yeah.
And what I understood in the moment was that because I'm standing in the dominion as the I am presence incarnate in flesh, that I'm basically creating the energetic space for everything that everyone needs to come in. And so what happens is the desires of their heart are being met, and everything that they need. And I sort of say this, that first of all, when I begin a group, is that let the truth of all that is before me be seen in its absolute truth.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for absolute clarity and discernment in everything that I do, that I'm not deceived. And the other thing is, I ask that let the heart's desires of everyone that is before me, let them receive that which they truly seek in their highest good for love. And so they're bringing it in, and I'll tell the people, you have done a fabulous job of calling in what you are looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm just the one that's holding the energetic space with them in harmony, because it's the universal law of where 2 or more are gathered.
Yeah.
Everything is amplified. And so, you know, they created that. It was a creative, collective, harmonious creation of well-being for all of them. And my work isn't to hold me above. That's something that it's like I'm like, no, don't put me in that place. Because each one of us is perfection.
Yeah.
Not knowing itself.
Yeah.
I'm just there to remind them of what they are.
Yeah, as they are there to remind us of what they are. You know, everybody's got a piece of that. God, I had just back up on the magenta light. That, you know, the magenta has been coming out. You know, people have had pictures around the world for a few months now where it's coming out really strong, and some other colors, but that one really is a striking color. And now you're saying that the magenta light is a combination of all the lights, including the white light.
All 7 rays and the white light. And the gold and white can be interspersed in that as well.
Yeah, because I know not just myself, but I know for myself, it's always been in the physicality as well as the etheric. But of course, it much more, it's much more, impactful when it happened to me, even in the early days, this golden white light.
Yeah.
But the reason I was bringing it up is because over the last, it was not yesterday, but the day before, maybe the day before that, in this area that I live in the mind's eye, I kept seeing like all the grass, of course, is really green over here, was a pink. It was this magenta. And I thought, well, what is that? Is that the mother goddess, unconditional love? I mean, why am I seeing? It was like everything I was seeing is no different to me looking out the window now, but pink was the primary color, like green is to us here. And I just thought that was kind of interesting that you're talking about that. And I like what you say too about what your role is, because you've had a lot of very powerful intel, like many have, for many years, and yet you hold this space of it's not me.
That's right. And it's like when years ago, and if people have looked at my Facebook page, I have a page that's sort of a testimonial page of people, what they've experienced through the work that I've done. And there was one young lady that I went to see, and she had been seizuring for 11 months, 22 months in this facility down in Florida for Lyme's. And the treatments out there just are not successful, cost them a lot of money. And when I walked in there, I'm walking into the room knowing that she's not well, being guided to go, being told to go. She had a dream that said that Jesus told her that a blonde woman was coming to heal her. And so when her mom heard that, she flew me down. I walked in the room and she was in seizure and blew around the mouth and had the death lock in the jaw. And as Susan in the flesh, right? Because we're in a convergence where, that which I am in personality, mind, and ego is converging with the truth of who I am. But in that moment, when I went down there, which was well over a year ago, there was still that sense of more of the human aspect than there was of the spirit. There's been a shift recently in all of us, and we're starting to see it in the embodiment piece. So at that time when I walked in sort of as Susan and looked at this young girl and went, oh my goodness. And I just said, what have you brought me to? What are you asking of me here? And what I heard within my spirit was arise. And I knew in that moment that it wasn't Susan that needed to step forward in this moment. It was that which I truly am that needed to arise within me. And that's the way I used to do the work. Now it's a convergence. So I am walking in as that complete now. So, but at that time I walked in and this arising of my presence was felt in my cellular structure. I placed my hands on her and she stopped seizuring within 5 minutes. Her grandparents, her mother were both crying. They didn't know what to think. And I worked with her for a few hours that day and a few hours the next day. And later that day, she walked for the first time in almost 2 years.
Wow.
And prior to that, she was like a Raggedy Ann doll. A week later, at the waterfront, pedaling one of those stationary bicycles and happy. Wow. 10 weeks later, back home dancing. And this is now a year later, and she's just graduated from college. She's in a dance recital. She's got her driver's license and she's dating and living life. And this is what I see typically when we hold the space for them to come into the truth. And so when I'm working with someone that's sick like that, I don't look at them as sick. I look at them as the divine, not realized in the physical body.
Yeah.
And so I am calling forth their essence, their light, to take possession of the land, which is the physical body, and to take over the house.
Do you think that, like in the case of this young lady, and that's fascinating, it's a beautiful thing to be a living, breathing guardian angel, because I'm sure she looks at you that way. But do you think at a conscious level when this occurred or shortly thereafter, because I would imagine she had to integrate things over a few days, do you feel that in her own essence that she then became aware of
Yeah.
her divinity and owned her
Absolutely.
divinity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And my work would not be considered a success if I have not imparted that into them as well. So my role when I came onto the earth and was told by Yeshua at 17 is to call forth that which dwells within, which is the light of all, edify, equip, encourage, and release them to be the masters they were created to be. And so we are to be walking on an equal platform and to be discerning of all beings. I mean, all beings are created from light. Not all beings are serving the light.
True.
And so we have to be discerning of what is before us. And many of us are participating in things and making statements of claim that are actually bordering on deception. And I say woe unto those ones, because we are in the time of the dove, which is the truth upon the earth. And we are to be walking in sovereignty in everything that we do. And it is the truth that is the vibration of unconditional love that is our freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I was going to lead into the dove thing. And I just want to preface it with, a lot of energy the last 10 days, not just in the
Wow.
Soulogy circle or the light worker, or we'll now call them shadow worker circles. And so what I noticed was not only with you, but with several I'm familiar with that are like you. Their comments were few. They were very clear.
Yeah.
There was not really even any directive, direction, anything directed towards any side or stance or person.
Yeah.
It's just this almost like a higher self mantra or higher level statement. Very
Yeah.
simple, very simple, but very profound. And of course, the mention of the white dove. You weren't the only one. Can you explain to us what that is and what's happening?
The way I understand it myself is that it's resonant truth. It is a vibration of absolute clarity and knowing, truth coming in with peace. So the words to are less; they're not needed, and even a caution within that I feel within myself to not sort of dialogue about the old so much.
Yeah,
It's the letting go of that completely, and the realization that you can step through the eye of the needle now.
yeah,
And you can only step through the eye of the needle, leaving everything behind.
yeah,
And so when you leave everything behind, that means all of the collective stories that we have ever known that were created in the existence of us not knowing the fullness of what we are being challenged.
yeah,
And so many people don't want to let those things go because there's a lot of identity attachment to it.
yeah.
Whereas I often call myself no name brand. Identifications with what I am or who I do, other than saying a vessel, everything else sort of feels uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Because it serves no purpose. I know that to walk in as though naked, walk in completely vulnerable, and in the groups that I teach, I have no qualm about talking about the human condition and how I came into understanding and accepting who I am, because I think that is far more helpful to people than to hold a ritual or a conduct of behavior ahead of them that they have to do.
Yeah.
And the reminder that we are already ascended beings of light.
Yeah.
And so it's the stripping away of the rituals. I mean, I was talking to someone who has been studying under the keys of Enoch today. And he was even talking about, well, I need to ground myself. I need to do this, prayer, and I need to say it over and over and over again in order to ground myself. And I'm saying to him that is of the old.
Mm-hmm.
That's a ritual of the old, when you are not embodying the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
We are on the earth. We are not of the earth. And there's no need for the rituals of grounding anymore. Now, I'm not knocking them, because I understand that they will serve a purpose for those coming through the second and the third waves of ascension. And those second and third waves of ascension are really the realization of what you are. And we're creating platforms of understanding for them. So those that are going through the first wave are going to pave the way to help people to know what it feels like. And we don't have words for it. So we're in this kind of awkward place of, I am experiencing this and I'm not sure how to define it. And words are not sufficient to describe it, because it's all through the senses. It's all through feeling.
And it's not like something like you have an owner's manual. I mean, it's like we were talking about in the last show. You don't know what it is because we're actually creating it. You know?
And I call it the rabbit trail, right?
The rabbit trail. And on that note, what you're talking about, which I loved about what you talked about with the groups and not doing the ritual or the grounding ritual, whatever the case is, as opposed to telling them about your personal experience, not to feed your ego, but to actually convey this energy and frequency and code, because there's a common denominator. So in terms of the stripping away and leaving behind and all these things, both material and not, labels and such, and all the things that you're referring to, how have you done that? Because I think another thing that's so cool about you is that you have all this high level intel for so long, these skills and abilities, but you still say, hey, I'm still Susan. And so I mean, did you have to go through a process?
Oh yeah.
Was it painful? What was can you tell us a little bit about that? So maybe some people, we can pick up on that.
Yeah, my journey was a bit unusual in that I came in as Yeshua did. So I came in fully knowing, fully connected, and knowing Source very intimately. And so before I actually met with Yeshua at the age of 17, I was walking and talking with Source like I would my best friend. And I was raised Catholic, and so I had an understanding that God was your hedge of protection. And so for me, there was a hedge at the top of the block. And at eight years of age, I would hear in my spirit, come and sit with me, come to the hedge. And so I would walk up to the hedge, and some days I would hear, pack a lunch, you're going to be a while. And so I would pack a lunch and I would put my hand in this hedge and I would drag my hand around the hedge. And I felt like I was holding the hand of God, very childlike in nature. So this is probably why they want me to explain this. And so I would sit with one hand in the hedge sometimes and one hand in my lunch bag, eating and asking questions. And I would be made to sit and wait for the answer. And I wouldn't move until I heard what I needed to understand. And then at 17, Jesus came and he equipped me with the work that I was here to do. And I didn't understand it. And so I had seasons of stepping in to do what I have always known to be true. Very similar to the way I am now in truth. And what I was met with great opposition because I didn't know the truth of who I was. So I was an open target for those that had dominion on the earth to basically gaslight me or strip away my self-awareness or self-love. And so I tried to be in the world, but didn't know how to fit the world. And that created a series of opening to understanding and accepting who I was and having amazing experiences. I've seen what the world would call miracles since the age of 17, with moments of screaming and saying, like, I don't want this. Take it away. I don't want to know what people know. I don't want to see what's happening in people's lives. I don't want to see what's tormenting them. Leave me alone. Just let me be normal. And I would hear, we'll lift it off you for a season, but please know that when it comes back, it's going to be more intense. So what they were trying to say to me is you can learn easily over a period of time, or you can do the roller coaster ride, which is what I did. I did the roller coaster. And because we come in and we forget what we have agreed to do, I died in 98 and came back, and I was unhappy that I came back. And so I had built into my life path that I would have an event that would occur that would put me on my face. And so in January 9th of 2012, that occurred. And I was commanded to accept who I was. It was a stripping away of, I lost a partner to suicide. He left me with $349,000 in debt. I lost all family support. Nobody would come to the funeral. It was a horrific personal event, and it was beautiful in its perfect form. So on the floor, on my face, I was crying out, take me home. I don't want to be here. I don't trust what I know. I don't trust what I think. I don't trust anybody around me. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm here. And I think you need to take me off the earth. That's where I was at that point. And Jesus appeared to me in the physical. I was on my face on the floor in the living room, and he stood beside me and he commanded me to stand up. And so I stood up, and he, on the floor in front of me, he opened up this big, dark abyss, big black hole. And I could see it, my toes were on the edge of it. And he said, I want you to dive in. I want you to face everything. Dive in. Free fall into the unknown, and trust that everything that you need will be there when you need it. It's a complete act of surrender, coming to the end of everything that you know about yourself, everything that you believe to be true, everything that what I thought was my sense of stability in family, friends, work, mental awareness, knowledge, everything was surrendered in the free fall. And it was terrifying. It was a death. It was an absolute death of Susan in that moment. And also in a very heavy restoration phase of the grief process, because it's a very physical thing in the body. So for the next 6 months, I pretty much was on the floor.
Yeah.
And listening, in a state of listening and learning, and information was being downloaded to me. And that was actually when I first realized that there were UFOs watching over me. And I didn't even understand that. So it's like everything opened up. And time frames lose me right now, but sometime within that time frame, my front door opened, and down the hallway walked Yeshua in the full light body, and my husband Phil, he was also in a light body, and he came towards me and he took my hands and he explained to me about the prior covenant that we had made, that he would do this as a great act of love to propel me on my face to remember the truth of who I was. And once I had fully accepted it and entered the free fall, then everything that came up in my life, from the debt that he left me, was a surrender. I don't know what to do with this. Here you go. And I would hand it over and expect that the answer would be there. And they would usually give me a word, or like say, for example, the insurance company wasn't going to pay for the house because of the suicide. They said that we had the mortgage 3 days less than 2 years. And I knew that we had it 2 years and 3 days. This is how close it was. And I could not find the documentation to fight the bank on the appeals. And yet I had heard in my spirit very clearly that the house was mine. But the evidence around did not support that. And so I kept doing what I felt I could do. I was looking for documentation, and I think I was on the 3rd appeal with the bank about that. And I sat down at the edge of my bed, and I went into a surrender place, and I said, listen, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I need. You've told me the house is mine. So whatever it is that I need, you need to bring it to me. I'm going to go to sleep. And when I put my feet on the floor, I want an answer. And I turned around to turn out the light on the nightstand. And on my pillow, it was covered with gold dust, and down the side of the bed and onto the floor. And my response to it at that time was, I'm glad you heard me. Because I was at this complete place of frustration and feeling like I'm losing everything. I'm losing everything.
It sounds like a manifestation of the golden creation particles. I guess my next question is, did that while you were sleeping, did they form into the document you needed?
No, but I get gold dust all the time. It appears on my skin, and I've had manna fall, the oatmeal shaped food that was fed to the Jews in the desert, that falls at my feet. It's a supernatural food, and you stay awake for hours when you eat that stuff. So, but the next morning
you'll have to invite me over for dinner sometime.
Right. Just hang out with me for a week, Todd. You'll be surprised at some of the things that happen around me. It's quite entertaining.
What was that date again? January the 12th?
January 9th.
Ninth.
When he died, January 9th of 2012. And the 9th, they told me, was a gateway. That was the last gateway of that cycle that he had to exit, because they were concerned that if he hadn't left then, that I wouldn't want to stay on the earth because of something that he had done prior that I was working through, right?
Well, that the reason, and now that you say that, it really resonates. So I was 7 months, you know, in the beginning of my journey, and some things like that happened.
Yeah.
And so from about January the 2nd, and I don't know if it was the 9th or the 10th, I believe it was 10 days, 10 actual parts of 10 days. So I think that would either be the 9th or the 10th. And I went into a hotel room and did things my way. And I locked the doors. Yeah, I locked the doors, and I got the shamanic stuff that I needed, which was beer and, you know, cigarettes and, you know, just whatever I needed. And
Yeah.
and it was, I think it was really the first dimensional experience I ever had, because the 10 days seemed like a 2 days, you know.
Yeah.
But the energy of what you're talking about in that time period, especially with your husband, I was at a crossroads then, and I didn't have the literal thing going on where I could really understand, but I knew I had a choice.
Yes.
And there was a lot of life review. There was a lot of dimensional demons, you know, apparitions, angels, and it was. But I think that must have been the reason.
Our wake up call.
Yeah, it must have been something that wasn't just happening in my universe, you know.
Well, you know what was really cool is that Phil, before he died, he brought me onto a NASA website of the Antarctic, and they have cameras up there. And he showed me something on the camera, and I said, "What am I looking at?" He was very much into Coast to Coast, George Norrie, cosmology, and so I learned a lot from him on the cosmology side of things before he died. Prior to that, I would say I was probably more religious than I was even. I'm completely different from then now. But in the camera, what he showed me was a planet beside the sun. And he said, you need to keep your eyes on that. And I know now that that's the Nibiru System that's been here in our awareness since 2012. And this is what's happening right now too, is we have this system. That's probably a whole other show to talk about. But going back to asking for what I needed for the mortgage, when I woke up and I put the insurance, once I put my feet on the ground, and then a name dropped into my awareness that I'd forgotten that we had gone to for a mortgage approval. And so they said to me, call her, tell her nothing, ask her what's in her files. And so I called her name was Nikki. And I said, Nikki, this is Susan. I'm wondering if you could pull your file for Phil and I on the mortgage. She goes, yeah, sure. Hang on a second. She goes, we don't have a physical file. It's a virtual file. Is that okay? And I said, sure. So she goes, hang on, give me a second. She pulled up the file, and then she said, so what exactly do you need? Where do you want me to start? The date? It was the date that I needed, right? So I said, yeah, the date would be good. And so she rhymes off the date, and there it was. That was exactly what I needed. And I heard in my spirit, have her print the screen and email it to you, and wait till you get it. When you get it, then tell her what you need. And so once I got the physical paperwork that I needed, then I asked her for her help. And because of her help, she wrote a letter to the bank, and they were forced to have to pay the insurance on the mortgage where they were fighting it. So when we go into surrender, even our not knowing what to do, when we're in that place of, I'm at the end of my rope, I don't know what to do. Do I stay in this marriage? Do I leave this marriage? Do I sell this house? Or what do I do? You give it up. You give it up, you hold loosely and allow whatever is the outcome to be. Inside, in everything that you're going through, there is an eternal voice that is telling you what you need to do and what the promise is that's been given to you. Like they said to me, the house is yours. Now I could run off in the mind and say, oh, the bank is doing this, the bank is doing that. And I would have scattered my energy field, and I would not be standing on the dominion of what was spoken to me in truth. And when truth speaks to you, it comes in profoundly. It's like an immovable, unshakable knowing. that makes no sense sometimes. And this is where they want to take us right now, is to come into that place of having the awareness of that immovable, unshakable, profound, forceful knowing that causes us to push through things that we would normally not push into. Because the ego and the mind and the small self would want you to, oh, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? Telling them that, what are you doing? You should sell the house. You should let it go. Don't fight the bank. Don't go after these things. But if you stand on the knowing, then you enter into the awe of God. And I'm in a constant state of awe. I'm being called right now to return to Mount Shasta. I was back there when I was blessing the waters, and they told me that I have access to the portal on Mount Shasta. When they told me that, I didn't even know what it meant 6 years ago. And so that's when the beam of light changed from white to magenta. And so I picked that up when I was there in Mount Shasta. Now they're calling me to return. And they're telling me that apparently they were giving me these pictures of a lake up in Mount Shasta. And I'm to go to the lake. They showed me there's going to be a rainbow light on the earth, and I'm to walk through the portal. I have no idea in the physical what that means, but I know that it's important for me to go. And so I reached out to a friend from Mount Shasta, and I said, do you know if I'm seeing this lake with mountain peaks, but there's peaks below the peaks. And I don't know what that is or where that is. She goes, I know exactly where that is. It's Heart Lake on Mount Shasta. And I said, well, I'm supposed to go. And they're really pushing at me to go. So I'm stopping sessions at the end of May, and I am heading west. And I have friends in Oregon, just south of Portland, Oregon, that have offered me their house. They've offered me to stay as long as I need to. I'd love to go to the James Gilliland conference. I feel I'm supposed to make a connection there. I've got probably 10 to 15, maybe more people that want to join me on the trek up to Mount Shasta to find out what that's all about. And I've also heard that I am to go to BC, and I'm supposed to look at Kamloops, Kelowna, and the island. And so I was looking at the map thinking, well, where would be a good central place for me to go to? And I was thinking Abbotsford, but it wasn't making sense. It wasn't sort of gelling, but I was feeling it. We're feeling our way through everything right now and holding loosely to it. So this morning, I get a message on Facebook Messenger from a woman who's asking, she wants to fly to Ontario to have a session with me. And I'm saying to her, where are you from? She says, I'm from the West Coast. I said, well, whereabouts out west are you? And she's in Abbotsford. So she's offered me her house to come and stay with her as a landing place while I'm in BC. Wow. So I'm looking, probably I'm going to be out in the West Coast from June till I'm thinking even September. Wow. I'm going with an unknown destination, unknown length of time, but I'm going to get whatever it is they're calling me to on the West Coast. And anybody that's out there that would love to see me, let me know.
Well, we're the extended West Coast. I mean, we're one flight away. Yeah, that's very intriguing. It really is. What I'd like to do is get somebody with a camera or a GoPro to have available before you walk through that rainbow portal. Because,
my friends ask me, they say, what is your last name anyways? Because we don't know your last name. And if you go through and don't come back, we don't know who to tell the RCMP to search for. Or the police in that area.
you brought up the other thing, and you're right. It's a whole other show. We've never really got in 1,000 episodes, never really got too much into the stories of disclosure. I'd put it that way. We talk about the energetics of it. We talk about the energetics of, hey, is the Nasara, the RV, is it a program? Is it a distraction, or is it? But there's this mix of what I would call the physical and the non-physical. And obviously what we're looking at up in the cosmos and some of the things that are associated with that, there's a physical, maybe a higher physical, or a physical that also allows in the non-physical. I don't know how to explain it. We're talking dimensions, realms, whatever. But in terms of Nibiru,
Yeah.
I have seen a whole lot of different things on the Nibiru.
Yeah.
To include, if they were all correct, we wouldn't even be here right now. But there does seem to be, from an energetic standpoint, with some physical evidence that's really not refutable.
Right.
It is irrefutable.
I understand.
What do you know, or what's your take on that? I'm just curious.
Well, there's various teachers. We have the Hopi who call it the blue kachina. We have the Bible that calls it wormwood.
Mhm.
We have, I think, NASA that calls it Planet X or Planet 9. It is a planetary system with its own sun and planets that it crosses our orbit. We either cross its orbit or it crosses our orbit. And the last time that it crossed our orbit was in the days of Noah and the flood.
Mhm.
And we were promised that we would never experience that again. So my understanding, and this is just knowledge that's come in, I don't have anything to back it up other than it's just knowing that comes in that I have learned to trust. And what I understand is that the pyramids were put upon the earth to keep the earth in balance, so that we don't have another flood when the system comes through. And the earth, they're saying the earth will go into a wobble, and it's already begun its wobble. When the tsunami in Japan occurred, the landmass of Japan moved 8.5 feet towards shore on the tectonic plate shifting. And so this is what's happening with a lot of the weather. We also have weather machines that the governments have created, the HARP, which are interfering with our weather. They have also created an artificial sun. So when people look at the sun and they're taking photographs of it lately, and they're getting all these refracting lights and they think they're orbs or angelic things, they're not. What happens is they're photographing the sun when this artificial sun is overlaid over top of it, and it's casting these reflections back into their camera, and it's creating these colored images. So we really have to be careful that we're not putting everything into a spiritual, mystical thing. We also have to use our discernment and our wisdom. Now, when I've got a photograph actually of the system coming in. I've been photographing it off and on for a couple of years because I hear in my spirit that we are to keep our eyes on what's above us, because there's signs there for us to pay attention to. And, there is a timetable that is a universal timetable of events that we are in. And this planetary system coming through, we'll have some days of darkness. It'll disrupt our energetics, our computers, our electronics and stuff. And so the governments know this. They're not stupid. Those that have had dominion on the earth know the timetable.
Yeah.
Right. So to pretend that it's conspiracy theory and there's a deep concern. So I hesitate. You can tell I'm hesitating to even talk about it because.
Well, just talk about what you're comfortable talking about.
Well, because I am to cause no harm or to create no fear.
Yeah.
And so there is no need for concern. I will say that.
Yeah.
What is of the highest priority for all of us is to know who we are, know what we are, and make that declaration that I am here.
Yeah.
I am free. I am sovereign, and stand on those universal truths of who you are. And in that, you cannot be touched. You cannot be harmed.
Yeah.
And it's also to develop that clarity of hearing the resonant voice of all that is as you, in you, so that when you get in your car and drive 200 miles north now, you get in the car and you drive there without hesitation because you know that intimate guidance so well that you don't doubt it, no matter what the person to the left or to the right of you says.
Yeah.
And this is what they're calling us to right now, is to understand resonant truth so that we can discern the times that we're in, and also to stay open to the things that you think you believe are true. Because oftentimes there's another story going on, and I think Trump's a prime example of that.
Yeah.
We see what he's doing in his physicality, and yet I was shown the being of light that he is and the role that he's playing. And he's doing exactly what he came in to do. He is a high being of light that is disrupting the system of control, the government, the banking systems, and he's cleaning the swamp up.
Yeah.
And he is on purpose not to be seen for who he is. And he does not yet know that which he truly is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think for about him or anybody else that might have a lot of recognition around the world is they put their pants on just like we do.
That's right. And we have to remember that the spirit dwells within each human being, and the whether they're serving a lower vibration or a higher vibration right now, there is the light of all that is that dwells within them. And the ones that play the lower density roles that we would consider dark or evil have chosen to take on a karmic load, and they're serving the purpose because the light cannot be seen without its counterpart. That does not mean that we are to engage or participate in what they do. We are to hold an expansive light of truth.
Yeah.
And to reclaim dominion over this earth and set the captives free. Bring all beings into truth. And those ones that have chosen to play the lower karmic roles, I am of the understanding that as of December 21st of last year, that we are to leave them with that of their choosing.
Yeah.
That there's a higher presence, a hierarchy that will deal with bringing them into the light and clearing their karmic load. That is not our role.
Yeah.
Although I understand in my work that I have been granted a dispensation so that if they do come to me, if they are showing an open and willingness of their heart to choose to serve the light and to turn away from everything that is contrary to that truth, that they are granted what is called a dispensation of mercy, where they can come in to understand the light and they can begin to clear their karmic load now.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And these are things that are beyond most people's understanding. And there's more and more of this awareness is coming in, because as we come into the energy of the truth and the dove, things are going to be made shockingly real. And it's going to, you can imagine, it's going to dismantle some people in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
And we have to know that, an example, we can play with this, we can have fun. So I have some investments, and I don't know if I've talked about this or not, but I had gone away, and when I came back, the bank manager phoned me and he said, so I need to talk to you about something. All of your investments you've made money on, but other people that we've invested in the same things have lost money. Can you explain that to me? Because he knows I'm a energy worker, healer, whatever you want to call me, right? So I said to him, well, you see, I heard the stock market was going through some stuff while I was away, but I'm not concerned about it because I am not under the dominion of the Earth's banking system anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in the dominion of the Most High banking system, the creator of all that is. So in me and in what I have, there is no lack.
Yeah. I
have the vault room of the kingdom is open to me. And he says, well, how do I get that? I said to him, well, come and have a session with me and I'll help you to remember who you are. Wow. And then you can step into what is available to you. And this is the thing is, that's what when you go through the eye of the needle, you're stepping into what has always been waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I've been doing these, and I've done it privately. I haven't even, not because I was hiding anything, but I haven't even discussed it with Morgan. I just, in my normal course of communion throughout the day, I've been I've been pulling up the false structures or pieces of the false structure, be it the financial or these laws or these rules. And I've been stating or declaring universal law,
right?
Universal alignment, and thanking these structures and limitations or perceived limitations, lack control, thanking them for the role they played, but that I'm now freeing myself from them.
Perfect.
rather than go through any legal machinations. And I'm just glad to hear that you say that, because that makes me feel like I'm not crazy.
Yeah. No, I that's where I do most of my work, Todd. I mean, is I do it in the field of truth.
Yeah, I get that.
We've danced in the world of what we thought was true.
Yeah.
And energetically now we are supported. We are so supported to step into this now. And what I say to people that I work with in the groups that I teach is, what have you got to lose but to play with it and find out for yourself?
Yeah, because
right?
we tried everything else. Didn't work.
And this is where the free will comes in.
Yeah.
You must align your free will with the truth of all that is.
Yeah. Beautiful. You know, I was getting a little, I always do everything spontaneously, and I had this little thought enter my head. When we go on, I just feel like the need for, or I'm starting to feel that maybe Susan takes us through a blessing, a prayer, a declaration, whatever it is, at the beginning of the show. But now it's the end of the show, and I think it's even more perfect. It's been a very good vibration. I am certainly excited to continue collaborating with you and supporting you and expanding the awareness of your energy. But if there's anything you'd like to do to close the show out this time, whatever resonates, feel free to do so.
So if everybody just wants to take a nice deep breath in, and breathing is key. I know I've said this before, but we are the breath of all that is. And word is spoken on breath. And you are the living word made manifest in the flesh. And so I call forth the truth of that which you are to arise within you into the fullness of all that is in every cell of your body. I call forth the divine in you to arise within the creation of this physical body that you created to house you. And I call forth this light to, rather than be housed within this physical body, to come out and to encompass and embody the creation of the physical body, mind, soul, and spirit as one in convergence to all that is. Arise into the fullness of who you are. Leave everything behind and step into the portal. Step into the eye of the needle. Be brave and let it go. All the things that you think have defined you, all the things that have controlled you, are all an illusion. We have left behind the system of control. We are only keeping it active by our belief systems and by our thoughts. And so I invite you to test and try out and play with the possibilities. Pay attention to how fast you think of something and feel everything. And as it feels exciting and interesting, play with it and hold on to it loosely. If you hold on to it too tight, then you have an attachment to it of disbelief. And in disbelief, you're not standing in the truth that you are a powerful creator, speaking things into existence. Have an expectant heart. So I think about Abbotsford, and I have a knowing that I'm to go to Abbotsford. I do not know why. And I'm not taking the steps to plan it. And I release it into the universe with the knowing that if I am called to go to Abbotsford, it will come before me, and it will come with ease and grace, and it will excite me, and it'll be entertainment for me. So I encourage you, be entertained. Let the universe show itself to you with the expectation that I have dominion over all things now, and nothing is withheld from me. And so I speak this freedom into your life. And I know that there's a beautiful channel, Paul Selig, Selig, and he speaks that, you know, a lot of beautiful teaching about I am the word. And so I declare with you, as you, I am the word. I am free. I am free. I am free. You are free. You are free. You are free. You have always been free. Now stand in this freedom as one who has dominion over your life, and go with the boldness. Sit on your throne. A king does not create from his servitude. No longer be a servant in your kingdom. Take your rightful place on the throne of your life and begin to speak from the place of creation in your kingdom. and watch it be provided for you, because you are sovereign and nothing is withheld to those who know the truth of who they are. And so it is.
And so it is. Endless gratitude, love, honor, and respect.
Mhm.
Reverence, thank you for sharing space with us and taking us through this last hour and honoring us with your presence. And I look forward to future collaborations.
Yeah, love you,
And
Todd.
love you too. Thank you very much.
Have
See
a
you
great night,
guys.
everybody.
See you guys in what, 1:30, an hour and a half for our last show. It'll be very interesting. Take care, Susan.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye bye.
Bye.